share their experiences and to share how they are taking up this journey of achieving their personal goals. So the main motivation here is why can't we utilize this rich amount of data that is freely available, shared with public, and learn plans or sequence of actions from individuals' experiences. So that's the main question here. And towards this particular thing, the main question is, can we leverage this data shared on these social media platforms to build action models for decision making? So essentially, we are trying to learn from these online behaviors or online patterns and try to make these systems that can affect the offline behavior of users. So just to give a simple example, so this is from Pew Research Center. These statistics actually show that people do rely on social media during their tough times. So the reason why I'm actually bringing this up is because of the domains that I'm going to consider. So this is an example from a quit smoking domain. So I am going to use Reddit. So Reddit is a platform where you have multiple subreddits. And each subreddit, the main goal is a particular interest. That interest can be personal or professional, and individuals join this particular subreddit to talk about that particular interest. And there are a lot of discussions, a lot of information pouring in there, and so on. So this particular stop drinking subreddit, an individual comes in here and says that day one again, I'm still going to try again after making it 9 days. So here, this particular subreddit is a goal-oriented subreddit. Most of these individuals here are trying to quit smoking, quit drinking. And this person comes and says this, and you can see that other individuals are coming here to support this person, this individual. And also on day 2, the same individual comes back and says, hey, I took a shower and did my hair. Sometimes it's the small stuff. So there are these kinds of actions that individuals are doing, and it's actually kind of helping them feel better, and which is eventually leading them to achieve their goals. So I'm talking about this mainly from the building action models and so on, but how do we build this model that I'm talking about, and how do we use this model? So these are the kinds of questions that we can ask here. And existing research, especially in classical planning, so we have a domain expert who is building domain models, and it requires structured information. And also they assume that in order to build a model, plant traits are already present. And these are very restricted domains, but here the kinds of domains that we are considering from social media platforms are unrestricted, unstructured, and they don't have plant traces readily available, and it has a lot of noise. So we consider 3 different domains: stop smoking, couch to 5K, and stop drinking. So stop smoking is how to quit smoking. Individuals want to quit smoking. And C to 5K is individuals who never ran in their life, they want to run a 5K. And stop drinking is the individuals want to quit drinking. And so there are 2 main phases for this thing. So first we extract plant traces, and then we build the model. So in order to extract plant traces, so what we do is first I utilize parts of speech tagging to identify the actions and its predicates, and then establish precedence relationships between these actions through agglomerative clustering and word-to-vec approach. But this is a hard problem. Why? Because it's a natural language data, and it's unstructured information with no schema, large number of actions, and also there's no sequentiality, like we have to identify preconditions and effects. And also, even if we identify a model, what's a good model and how do we evaluate it? So towards doing the trace extraction, so we first crawl the data, and then with the data we identify we do POS tagging, so we identify actions. And in order to identify the predicates for that actions, we consider both nouns and adjectives and do a ranking metric in order to choose which is the best predicate for that action. And then followed by agglomerative clustering approach with word-to-vec similarity, because we train the word-to-vec model on the Wikipedia dataset, and it can give information about how close 2 actions can occur in a real-world scenario. And some of the traces that we obtain from couch to 5K are these. I know it looks messy, but so individuals are trying to say that they managed for some minutes and started walking and tried again and managed and so on. So these are not like really perfect, but we are getting some sort of information from the unstructured data. So, and then I try to model it in two different ways. One is graph based, and the other one is neural network based. So graph based is essentially, I built a graph. So this is a directed acyclic graph where each node is an action which is associated with its predicate, and we have a goal state. So the main aim here is to identify a path from a given state to the goal state, and this path can be a shortest path with respect to the length, or it can be a shortest path with respect to the weights, and so on. And the weight between any two nodes is essentially the conditional probability between these two actions. And the kinds of plans that we obtain here are somebody got convinced, right, and they eventually quit smoking. And somebody is constantly getting frustrated, start disliking cigarettes, and then they eventually quit smoking, and so on. And for Couch to 5K, they have been battling for years. It went on for weeks, and then ran in a couple of minutes, and so on. So these are the kinds of plans that we obtain through this particular graph-based approach. And so we wanted to see, because of the success rate of RNNs in terms of generating sequences, we wanted to see, use the same data set and see what RNN predicts. And by varying certain parameters, generated three top associated words. And if you notice, for subreddit, from Couch to 5K, it's associated with support, encouragement daily, and stop smoking helpful, oh thank you, and inspired lurking listeners. So people are essentially using these subreddits, and they are very helpful for them, and it shows a lot of positive attitude and positive emotions in these particular words. And these words are better than our very general or unigram or bigrams, because RNNs essentially preserve the semantic as well as syntactic relationships. And at the same time, positive keywords such as exercise and advice, it's actually also again showing that individuals are working towards their goals. They are started exercising by running, stretching, and they are coping up with a lot of scenarios, and they are taking up eating well, and these stories are inspiring them, and so on. And if you look at the negative sentiment words or keywords, so you can see excuses, quit, and fail. Individuals are giving excuses. Yes, rain, because of rain I didn't go, or I'm trying to rationalize certain scenarios, maybe because of pregnancy I stopped doing this, and so on. But they are actually sharing these issues that they are going through over there, and maintaining some sort of accountability. And we observe that these are like serious users with some high levels of positivity, with accountability and responsibility. So there is a lot of goodness in this particular participating in these subreddits and trying to achieve their goals. And just to give a very quick result here from RNN. So this is for the quit smoking domain, and it shows, it actually starts from a very negative sentiment and it goes to positive sentiment. So they quit many times and they have been quitting smoking, but they smoked cigarette and so on, had bad cravings, but mad, and they have physical cravings, and they are coming to these platforms and they appreciate any kind of advice. So, and these are considered as the aggregated plans, and these are essentially aggregated from multiple experiences and came up with these kinds of plans. The RNN generated this particular one. So also I did other different other research projects, primarily in social media venue. So studied different influence of social media with respect to marketing strategies, and also we built a AI mix system in our lab that essentially does crowdsourced planning that supports sequential decision making, where individuals going to a new city, this system essentially generates travel plans. And also worked in the area of intelligent personal assistants, how individuals are trading their convenience for privacy, and so on. And so I have one other major project I have been working on. so that's nice. So, yeah. So with regard to future research, I have been brainstorming various aspects. So one thing I really want to continue is the area of personal goals and decision making, and also want to look deep into these algorithms and systems from the various perspectives like data and domain, and see if we can explain the results that we are obtaining. So for example, the kinds of plants that I'm showing, why am I getting these kinds of results, So trying to dig deep into the algorithms and approaches and explain them. And again, work received a lot of impact with media attentions and so on. And we also got the Best Demo Award for AI mix system that we built in our lab. And some of the, I know this is a very bad slide, and hopefully my advisor doesn't yell at me. So this is a this is a list of publications that I have, and the green ones are the ones that I focus more on after my proposal, and red ones are the ones that I presented, that I worked on before proposal. And I would like to thank my co-authors and collaborators. I mean, very grateful for my advisor, my committee members, my lab mates, and so on. Also collaborators Munmun, AJ, and Shirin from IBM. But finally, again, thank you. And also I would like to thank my funding sources and also my lab mates, without whom I wouldn't have come this far. And thank you so much. I really appreciate all of you coming to my talk. Thank you. But hold on, someone is right. So just to give an overview, social media, we saw that it's a powerful medium to connect with others and seek information and do various sorts of things. At the same time, data that is getting generated is very complex. And it's not just structured or semi-structured, but unstructured, visual, and in various different types of formats. Individuals share this image, share their statuses. And at the same time, the main thing is, can we build automated approaches to essentially look through the lens of the individual's posts to understand about their activities. So looking through their online patterns to understand their offline behavior, but at the same time, can we build mixed initiative approaches towards building decision-making models, so that we can use these models to influence the offline behavior of individuals. And with this, I will take questions. Thank you so much.
Okay, so there's time for questions in the public forum. Any of you have any questions, please bring up, including, of course, the committee members can always ask questions. Questions?
In the decision making from social media, you mentioned that there were some users that were serious users and others were just there saying, oh, I'm in trouble, don't give up, help me, or those kind of things. So how do you distinguish between the serious users that can actually give you steps for a particular, say, stop drinking versus others?
That's a...
To add on to that point, half of Reddit or maybe more is bots.
Sorry.
Is bots.
Okay.
Half of Reddit, I may be exaggerating, but a lot of Reddit users are bots. So how do you?
That's a very good question. So one thing, maybe this might be coming from a quantitative perspective. One thing during my analysis I observed is, even though there are bots, because of the heavily moderator presence in these subreddits, especially these are being goal-oriented subreddits, they are actually moderating these posts. So if individuals are lurking, it's fine, but there are these posts that are made by maybe bots which don't match with the group's interests or something, so they are actually moderating those posts. So, but if bots are built to essentially, mislead them, I don't know how to deal with that. That entire thing is another thread of research, like bot detection. But coming to your question, so what he was asking is, how do you define serious users from non-serious users? That's a good question. I mean, you have to dig deep into user profiles. interesting in Reddit because in Reddit you have a user, but only you can get information about how a user made posts on various subreddits, but not about the user itself. So there's no user biographical information like you see on Twitter or Instagram. So maybe by addressing these posts itself, you can see how serious they are, but I didn't do that exactly. But what I mean by serious is users who are on this goal-oriented forum, they are seriously discussing about this issue rather than, just giving up or, not following properly. So that much I can say, but I mean, I have to give some kind of probability values with that. So.
Thank you.
Other questions? Any questions from the committee members for the open session? No?
I would just try to stop from graduating because you are so sad.
I'm never unhappy if my students don't graduate. So they might be, but not me. So if there are no other questions, going once, going twice, going thrice, then the public. I'm sorry.
I can ask a question.
Please go ahead. Yeah, you can.
yeah.
Yes, please go ahead.
Lydia, first of all, great presentation. It's so awesome to see all of your work come together. So thank you for that. I thought the last part of your work on synthesis was really interesting. And I have a couple of questions. And these are more open-ended. So, there isn't like a right or wrong answer. So let me know what you think. So I was thinking how your model would handle missing data, because one of the things with social media data is that people don't post everything. They selectively share what they want to share at any point in time,
Sure.
which means that it's possible that sometimes certain actions which actually were really important for people to transition from one step to another was not present in the social media reports of a certain user. So I was wondering, how you think missing data might have impacted your outcomes, and any solutions that you can think of to incorporate in your model to address that issue?
Yeah, that's a great question, Nunun. And in fact, when I started working on this project, I didn't look at social media. I was looking at more. So, for example, in the scenario of smoking or drinking, especially drinking, you have places like where there are established plans. I think it's like a 7-step approach where you can use and essentially can achieve your goal. So looking at that kind of structured and also reliable sources of information could actually may help, but not guaranteed. But to answer your question, the idea that I have is bringing various sources of information together, like social media and also the reliable source of information from experts, and also maybe we can also collect some surveys or questionnaires from users who are essentially going through these scenarios. Maybe bringing all these sources of information and using models can help with the missing data, because not just one platform can give you all the information. I totally agree. And also I would like to point out that these models highlight the actions or actions or the predicates based on their semantic as well as syntactic importance. So for example, if there are any outliers that are actually unique for one particular individual, it might be hard. Maybe we may miss those kinds of information. So it's a really good and important question that we have to look at when we are doing this kind of work. And I totally agree with so does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, thank you. I have a related question on the same project, but maybe I'll have anybody else who wants to ask a question before that, and I can come back to you later.
Okay.
You can go ahead.
All right. Yeah. So my related question was, Lydia, if you wanted to say a little bit about causality in the plans that you derived, because naturally one of the a tendency when you see sequences like that is to imagine that A caused B and then
Right.
B caused C and so forth.
Right.
But from what I understand, you're not really claiming causality here.
Yes.
Right?
Uh-huh.
So can you comment a little bit about, given that causality is such an important question in this field, lately, what kind of things that you might do if you were to extend this work going forward that might help you get at that question?
Sure. So yeah, you actually got the point right. So I'm not really establishing causality, but more calling it as precedence relationships. So towards establishing causality, maybe again, I will think of this as bringing various sources of information together to be confident of these relationships that we are extracting rather than just social media. Because the reason why I use precedence is because you can't really say that B is caused by A for sure, because you don't know, because this is a unrestrictive platform. So I will say that maybe I still have to think a lot about this. I don't have a proper answer, but one thing that comes to my mind is bringing in experts as well as user surveys along with social media data may help establish causality with a better confidence rather than just using one system standalone. But I don't know if that's right, but I have to think about that. So thank you so much for asking this.
Great. Yeah, no, that's fine. Thanks.
So I'll just add that you might think of, causality comes from interventions, like the ability to do interventions, and so obviously you're not going to do interventions on social media, but there might be data out there that might correspond to counterfactual interventions that were done before, and if there's a way of using that, that would be interesting. These are experiments that sort of just happened in the wild, as against you doing the experiments. And then Mr. Causality wants to say something.
Yeah, but my question is, why do we need to consider causality here? It's sufficient, right, here, if you consider the essence relationship.
Yeah, my question was more kind of looking forward, how this can be useful, and like Rao said, interventions is sort of the way to go as the next step in terms of making these helpful. So that's when the causality question comes up. But I agree.
I would like to defend for Lydia, because I'm enemy of Rao. He does not want her to graduate. I will push the other direction.
So there is spurious causality being imputed.
Okay, well, causality is, I think her answer is very good. Okay, why? Because there are confounders, and it's very difficult to find the confounders, and so it's until it's necessary. But we have done something. I will show you later.
Another thing would be, this is written by someone. He didn't have the causality being put out in the sentence. This all precedence relation came out from the sentences. So causality, if he didn't know and he didn't put it there, we cannot find it from those sentences at all. I mean, if he would have said that I didn't.
But Rao, actually, he is right. You can find additional sources
Right.
to do this.
That's
it's
right,
not
yeah.
like from one source. One
Yeah,
source
yeah.
you can.
Right.
I mean, look,
Right.
That's
how did human civilization find causality? Right, you essentially looked for interventions either you did yourself or the interventions that happened in the wild. And that's something that is still, and I think it's a very important question. Actually, I think Munmun's question is very much important in terms of the kinds of things that get done with the social media data. If for example, a certain section of people seem to be running bigger races, let's say from a particular like a particular zip code, does the zip code cause better athletes, or is there something that is actually connecting, and then I think entire civilization has been a once we always confused correlation and causality, and now we can do it, like everybody can do it because of the social media. It used to be, a few people. So I think it's certainly a very important direction that you should take this towards, especially, as you know, I have my concerns about, especially the work in, issues such as public health, where, and we had lots of discussions on this, and I'm very worried about finding spurious correlations and deciding that somebody is depressed, let's say, somebody is mentally ill, let's push them in. I think there was I think something that happened in London, in UK a couple of years back, where essentially just based on her post, people decided that she should be committed to an asylum or something. Some random nonsense like this can happen, So I think it's a public, these are great ways of helping with public health, but exactly there you should be extremely careful about causality versus correlation, and what are you using it for, and it's not that correlation is bad, it is that if you misunderstand, that then you could essentially put this person in an asylum for no good reason. So, yeah, so I think it's certainly a very important direction. Next big phase should be. Other comments, questions?
I have a question actually
Please go ahead.
related to the discussion. Yeah. I think kind of combining my thoughts with what Moon said and what Rao said, I think the next step is really thinking about how we can use these insights coming from research to do actionable things in the world with real users. And I really liked you pointing out, Lydia, that bias is going to be an important issue because people who are willing to share things about themselves may not really generalize to the larger population, where some people are more private. They actually don't have the ground truth data for a lot of the things that is happening in social media, because you cannot really go to the person and ask, like, are you really depressed? How depressed are you? Can you share your diagnosis with us, right? So I think these insights are very beautiful, and we are all trying to figure out how these are going to become actionable in the world. For example, the plans. What would you do as the next step if you want to use your plans to support people in different ways? Who do you need to partner with? What kind of studies you would need to do to really understand that these insights will lead to positive outcomes for people? So it's a kind of a big collection of ideas and questions in my mind.
So do you have any thoughts on how to make these actionable?
Yeah, I'm thinking.
I think she just emphasizes the significance of your work. Right? You pave the way for other people to
Just
do
wondering
walks.
about how to really put these into the real world.
Right?
Yeah, that's
Nobody
a great.
disagrees with me.
I am beginning to think with defense committee members like this, who needs friends?
Well, I can tell you as a social scientist,
Oh, there you go.
qualitative
Yeah.
researcher, I understand this conversation.
Yeah.
Completely understand this
I
conversation.
am right, right?
It's tricky. It definitely is tricky in making it more actionable, just because that's the whole issue when it comes to quantitative versus qualitative. And right now you are talking about a lot of qualitative concepts, using quantitative data. But you did very well. And yes, you have a big future with it, and this is a stepping stone.
Yes. She paves the way for a
Yes.
lot of
Exactly.
collaboration with social scientists.
I have to think about the points that you are mentioning about Deji. So,
Yeah, these are just thoughts for future work. It's not a criticism in any way. It's just us getting excited.
No, I am very much looking forward to collaborate because, going into academia, so I want to, not just because of that, but because of my interest too. So.
Okay, any other questions for the public forum? committee members will stay on and will ask more questions. So if not, then please stop all the recordings. I know that there is some